Thank you. A bill proposed in Madison by a bipartisan group of lawmakers could change the way ballots are cast here in Wisconsin in U.S. Senate and congressional races.
This is called ranked choice voting, and people on both sides of the issue spoke out this week during a public hearing. Jason Zimmerman is live in the Fox Valley newsroom with the first alert update. Jason.
Cami, ranked choice voting has been proposed before in Wisconsin, but until this week, there's never been a public hearing. Supporters say it should force candidates to appeal to a more broader base, unlike what is happening right now. Hoping for a dramatic change in how ballots are cast in Wisconsin, supporters of a ranked choice voting bill went before members of the Senate's Elections Committee this week. This includes former Congressman Reed Ribble.
Have you ever gone to the voting booth and asked yourself, why does it seem like I often must vote for the lesser of two evils? Right now, political parties are incentivized to invest money in selecting their opponents as much as convincing voters that their policies are better.
With ranked choice voting, all of the candidates for U.S. House and Senate races would appear together on a primary ballot regardless of their party, with the top 5 finishers advancing to the general election. Voters in the general election would then rank the 5 primary winners in order of preference.
You rank the candidates starting with your favorite, your first choice, to your last choice.
If a candidate receives a majority of first-place votes, they win. If no one gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. And anyone who had that person as their first choice instead has their vote go to their second-ranked choice. The process continues until one candidate has a majority of votes.
And I can tell you unequivocally, as a voter, it has been a disaster for me.
Opponents say the system's big drawback is that you have to select 5 candidates, and if not, the ballot is tossed out.
I can tell you from personal experience that when I vote and my fellow Mainers vote, we have no way of knowing if our ballots will count. And for thousands of voters, they don't. We are forced to decide if we should rank all the candidates, even those we fundamentally disagree with, or risk having our ballots discarded.
This, I believe, would force a change in behavior in Congress, causing them in our representative system to vote for the district's best interest rather than just the party base's best interest.
21 bipartisan state lawmakers have signed on to this bill. Opponents are also lobbying for a constitutional amendment which would ban ranked choice voting here in Wisconsin. Reporting live in the Fox Valley News from Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.